Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host Umar Khalid. But today is the 17th of June 2025. These are the stories that we will be highlighting during the course of the show. We'll begin, of course, with the latest as far as the Iran-Israel conflict is concerned, which has gone past its 5 days. The fact is that blasts are still rocking Tehran and missiles have also hit Tel Aviv. The number of casualties keeps on increasing, and Israeli Prime Minister says killing Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei would not escalate hostilities, but he said it would, quote unquote, end the conflict. The death toll, as I said, from Israel's attack on Iran has risen to more than 220. That includes 70 women and children, while more than 20 people have been killed in the attacks by Iran on Israel. This and more will be discussed, and of course the diplomatic initiatives that are being taken, including that by Pakistan and many other countries that have issued a joint statement together as far as this current conflict is concerned, the role possible or not of the US as far as de-escalation of this current conflict is concerned, and all the other players. What's going to happen in the next couple of days? What are the economic ramifications of this all, especially concerning the oil? And what is the stance as far as the different sections of the global body is concerned, makes part of our first segment. Our second segment, ladies and gentlemen, concerns the visit of our Field Marshal Munir Sahab to the United States of America, where he met with many of the Pakistani expatriates there as well, and there was quite a euphoric environment there, at least contrary to what some analysts were saying. And the Chief of the Army Staff expresses deep appreciation for the vital and the most important role being played by overseas Pakistanis for being ambassadors of Pakistan. This also contradicts all the Indian statements that had been coming on the media, saying that the Field Marshal was not going to visit or would not be visiting US for one reason or the other. So that negates all of that. This is going to be our second segment. Let's begin with our first, and that concerns the latest as far as the Israel-Iran conflict is concerned. We have been joined by two very important guests for this segment, and we introduce them to you one by one. On my right is Dr. Zafar Nawaz Jaspal Sahab. He's an international affairs expert. Thank you very much, Dr. Sahab, to have joined us. Next, Sangeen Khan, security analyst, joins us also in the studio. Thank you very much, Sangeen, to have joined us after a long hiatus, I must add. Let's begin with the, all of the details regarding what has been happening. What should we, look forward as far as the coming days are concerned? We'll begin with Dr. Saab. Dr. Saab, Tehran has been hit, so has Tel Aviv. But the number of casualties in Iran compared to the number of casualties in Israel is quite consequent. Reminds us a lot of what is happening in Palestine, for example. Is there an end in sight in your point of view as far as this current conflict is concerned? More than 5 days have passed since it began.
I think that the conflict has taken a shape of a protracted conflict. And if you see in the very beginning, Netanyahu said that it will be a long war. And on the other side, the Iranian side, the regime is very much at stake. So they have no other option except to retaliate. But at the same time, Iranians acted diplomatically, and they went to United Nations Security Council, and they also gave the impression that if ceasefire will be announced, we're going to honor. But of course, they are not going to accept the dictates. So in this context, this is an action-reaction. What we generally say that it's easier to start a war, but then the war has its own dynamics. And those dynamics escalate or spiral out. So in that context, this war is going like this way. Despite this, that the Americans immense support, French or European countries immense support, or what we call it indirect, a few regional countries support, this support is not in the case of, you can say, directly aggression against the Iran, but this support is defending the Israel through the interceptors. Iranian missiles are hitting target. Here, when you look about the casualties, sometimes you find that in the Israel casualties are lesser. The reason is that they are trained for immediately rushing to the shelter. Every place has a shelter. So whenever the siren rings, Israelis are in the shelter or whatever they are doing. So that's why you find that there's a lesser casualties. But at the same time, this war is a terrorizing. My final point in this context is that both sides have a challenge. For instance, the Israelis and their allies, let me put it like this way, they desired regime change. So it's not a survival of the state alone, but a regime. But same, you can say crisis, domestic challenges faced by the Netanyahu. Since 2023, there is a need of there is a demand for election. If there was no October war started in 2023, there were elections going to held, and Netanyahu has been facing what you call it corruption charges and other charges and lacks majority. So they are in a what you call it in a circle where they have to come out. Iranians are prepared to come out, but how the Israelis?
But you know, also the fact remains that this conflict began at a very crucial juncture when the 6th round of talks, nuclear talks between the US and Iran were about to happen.
That was very clear. If you see, in the 6th round talks, there was some kind of a flexibility was shown by the Americans as well as Iranians. For example, when the 5th round came, Americans asked that, or they said that the agreement shall be having a gold standard 0% fuel cycle or uranium enrichment. So Iran has to cut all the uranium enrichment and something blah blah. Then before the 6th round, 3-4 days before, the Americans started talking about that for the time being, yes, we are ready to accept Iranians' demand up to 3.5 or 5 low enriched uranium for the or a fuel cycle producing the low enriched uranium or for a plants. So they were ready to accept it, and on the other side, Iranians were also going to accept it. So that was the thing, and the Israelis knew that if the 6th round happened, I mean the last Sunday, there was or some kind of a agreement or flexibility will be moving ahead. So they preempted. But here is a 2-point. Point is that is Israelis, you can say, are they alone actor? No. Without the tacit approval of Americans, Israel cannot cross the red line. But in this context, one can expect that the Americans were also expecting, because in these talks, Iranians are not talking about the ballistic missiles. Since his previous tenure, Trump is talking about that finish the axis of resistance, it was finished. I mean the influence of the Iran in the region. Second, ballistic missiles. That's why he exited from the JCPOA deal. Now, in this case, maybe he asked that, or he slept that you can strike on that, and their missile or these things will be, and when they come on the table, they will be shaky and they will be more compromised. But he failed to realize that in this kind of a conflict, it escalates rather than de-escalate.
All right. Sangeen, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu says killing the Israeli Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei will not escalate hostilities, but quote unquote would end the conflict. Earlier there were also reports that the US President had vetoed, this is a report, I mean there is no confirmed fact emanating from the White House, but there were reports that the US President had vetoed the killing of the Supreme Leader that had been proposed by the Israelis. What now? I mean, now that there are very open statements as to the change of the regime, as Dr. Saab pointed out, or the culling of the leaders, what's going to eventually happen? I will be back to listen to the response of Sangeen, but we have to go to a short break. Stay tuned. We are discussing the Israel-Iran conflict, and Sangeen, we were asking you about the Israeli Prime Minister who says the killing of the Iranian Supreme Leader, Mr. Khamenei, could quote unquote end the conflict. But there were also reports that the US President had vetoed the killing of the Supreme Leader that was earlier also initiated by Israel. What now?
First of all, thank you very much for having me, and secondly, most importantly, it's really an honor to be on a panel with my honorable teacher here with me. Well, as far as your question is concerned, absolutely what the Prime Minister of Israel, Netanyahu, what he really wants in his larger objective is to get US involved in the region, in the war, because it has been his aim for many years, ever since he has been in charge for last 2 decades, to get US involved in the region. Secondly, what the Israelis have been doing by pursuing this decapitation strategy by attacking and striking the leaders. Case in point, recently the army chief and the intelligence chief of Pakistan Inqilab and all that. I think in this way the Israeli leadership has been undermining the resolve of the brave people of the Irans. I think I think they are miscalculating the resolve of Iran. I think I don't think that would happen. As you rightly mentioned about the American president knew exactly the repercussions when it comes to attacking the supreme leader of the Iran. I think that would be a strategic blunder. As recently the French president Macron rightly pointed out that it would be a strategic blunder and error to go for the regime change in Iran, because it would have the long-lasting ramifications in the region.
But you should also remember that France and other European countries are also defending Israel's stance to defend its territory.
They are doing, end of the day, they, and very unfortunately, the Europeans, and recently, if you see the press statement by the G6, they somehow tacitly, G7, thank you, they have defended the Israel's. I think they need to understand. If you see today, diplomatic front, the complete Muslim, community, they are standing with the Irans, because even the China, Russia, and I must appreciate the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. They have condemned the Israeli naked aggression. By violating the sovereignty of the independent country. If you see, last 2 years, Israel has attacked 5 independent countries, violating the sovereignty and territorial sovereignty of these countries. What does it show? It shows Israel does not respect the international law. Israel does not have any sense and ethics for the international law. So, as rightly mentioned by Honorable Dr. Saab, Israel cannot do that without the tacit approval and support of the United States of America. So, by connecting the dots, what it really reflects, the larger goal, this committee, APEC, American Israeli Public Account Committee, what it really wishes to get US involved in the region. End of the day, it would have multi-dimensional ramifications from ranging from the economic, political.
There are a lot of ramifications, and I totally agree with you on that, Sangeen. But the US, for the moment, has said that it does not want to get involved with it. But nevertheless, I hope that no US interests are, attacked by the Iranian side. US President Honorable Dr. Saab says he is seeking a quote-unquote real end to the conflict and not quote-unquote not a ceasefire, after issuing a warning on social media that also urged Tehran's residents to flee. And you remember the whole panic it caused, while vowing Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. There are 3 things here. A, he says there should be a real end to the conflict, which should not be a ceasefire. Secondly, he issued that warning on social media asking Tehran's residents to flee. And thirdly, he said Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. What kind of end is the US really looking towards?
I think that first of all, there is a one-liner. If Israelis had a chance to kill the Ayatollahs, the supreme leader, definitely they hit it. So they never stop it. So this is a wrong perception, a wrong. It doesn't make any sense anyway. We cannot say it's a wrong or correct or incorrect. Second is, Americans from the very first day are part of the conflict, and if they are, you can say, raising this bogey of the repercussions, alarming the Tehranis, that means that they realize that Iran is not admitting the defeat. So, if the Iranians do not admit a decisive defeat, then definitely Iranians have to negotiate. There will be a conditional kind of a ceasefire, and they are not going to compromise what he is saying, 0 uranium enrichment. That is the one point, and the other thing is that the target is the regime, the system, not the Iran. Now, in this context, though generally what we are seeing in the Western media, everything seems that it is very much coming in favor of Israel, but we have to keep in mind in this context that the world is not only a Western world or the Western media. There are other, you can say, opportunities, or other countries are there. Though Russians have been very much fixed there, but what the Trump has said, I am asking the Putin to negotiate a ceasefire between them.
Yes, this is also something that he added to that. But let's see how things move along, because there's a lot of countries that are involved, a lot of different points of view, statements that are coming. Whether those statements, in fact, translate into some kind of tangible action is what we will wait and see. Thank you very much, Dr. Saab, to have joined us. We have to go to a short break. We'll be right back. Welcome back, and we're discussing the Iran-Israel conflict. Sangeen Khan continues to join us. Sangeen, Trump, while talking to reporters on board Air Force One, said he might send Vice President J.D. Vance and his special Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff to meet the Iranian officials for discussions. He said, and I quote, "It depends happens when I get back." He also said that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon again. You know, can we kind of attach some hope, some optimism if the US president does send his two envoys?
I think there are some back channel unverified reports I came across where the Israelis have been, trying to request the US official to get the ceasefire done. At the same time, there are unverified reports from the Iranian side as well. They have conveyed their request to through Oman and other Gulf capitals to get the ceasefire done. But it remains to be seen. And the US really knows in this region, if this conflict goes on, if it remains very complex and protracted, it will have a long-lasting impact, because if this region, we have the Strait of Hormuz. If that gets blocked, if Iran blocks it, it would be strategically, economically disastrous, because for the last the conflict remains has been going on for the last 5 to 6 days, and the prices of oil have already increased by 10%, and it will have not only impact the regional countries, it will go all the way from consumer to the importing countries. So no doubt what the US wants, because there would be an impact not only in this part of the region but across the continents. So obviously the United States may understand, because if the conflict goes on, gets protected, if the US gets involved, the Iranians have already told there not a single military base of United States would remain safe, and that's why that might be a threat perception or threat assessment. United States of America wants the situation to be controlled, to get the ceasefire done, and ask the Iranians to come to the table. But at the same time, the trust level has become very diminished. Reason being, I think in this part of the Iranians have been deceived by the United States of America, because the Israeli aggression on Iran, on the Iranian sovereignty, it really speaks volume that America has lost credibility on the diplomatic front, because end of the day it was the United States of America negotiating with Iran. So Israeli has not only shown it has disrespected the international, at the same time it has given a it has disrespected, it is caused the credibility of the Americans. So America might have this calculation or the assessment, if the situation goes out of control, so they might be sending their as you just mentioned, vice president or their Steve Witkoff, the special envoy on Middle East, to get the ceasefire done. But I think one way the other way they will have to get it done, otherwise the ramification would not restrict there, it will have a long lasting impact.
You talked of US, you talked of diplomacy, let's talk of G7 as well. The spokesperson for Iran's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ismail Baghai, criticizes the G7 leaders for disregarding what he describes as Israel's blatant aggression against his country. Because of course the leaders, including Trump at the G7 summit, called for de-escalation while stressing that Israel had the right to defend itself. So all the G7 countries were in unison as far as that is concerned. What is the G7's responsibility in regard to this conflict that is going on between Israel and Iran?
It is very unfortunate, given the role of G7, the big seven economies of the world. As the saying goes, the larger the power, the larger the responsibility. This time, very unfortunately, it was a very golden opportunity to condemn the Israeli aggression. But unfortunately, here the aggressor is the Israel. Unfortunately, the world, is giving cover as, just like giving the cover of self-defense. It is not a self-defense. It's a clear-cut aggression.
Just like in Palestine.
Just like in Palestine. The way the Palestinians are, struggling for their due rights. But unfortunately, the genocidal, the aggressive, the genocide of Israelis, what they have been doing for the last 3 years. More than 60,000 innocent civilians have been murdered by the genocidal force. So this is very unfortunate. I think the earlier they understand, the earlier they absorb and grasp the reality, it would be for them. If today it is unfortunately Iran, tomorrow it could be another country.
course.
So the United States needs to understand. I think I need to refer. There's this book written by the John Mearsheimer in 2007, named as the U.S. Foreign Policy and Israel Lobby. An American scholar, he clearly writes that the Israeli lobby has become a strategic, liability on America. What Israel is doing, end of the day, it is causing the interest of the Americans. So it is high time, including the American, including the G7 countries, the European capitals, including the Canada, they need to say this thing very openly. The Israel has been doing this genocide throughout the region. What they have been doing with the innocent civilians of the Palestine. Now they are attacked independent sovereignty of the Iran. So it is high time, and I must appreciate the resolve and the unity of the Muslim community, especially of the OIC countries. They have come up and condemned the Israeli aggression and stood by our brotherly country Iran. And inshallah, the resolve will continue. And what I would suggest, what needs to go in a parallel way, what the G7 has done, in contrast, I think ITAM, the conference of OIC, should be convened, and there should be very unequivocal, clear, candid response that the Muslim community stands united with our brotherly country Iran. So it has to give a very clear response. It is high time to give a very shut up call to the Israeli aggression, and because end of the day their interest lies on this region. If there is a very clear cut response from the Gulf countries, I must appreciate our honorable defense minister, what he said a few days back. The Muslim countries need to stay united, and it's high time they must call, I must say, they must call off their diplomatic relationships with the Israel. So it has to put pressure on them, and I think the Muslim countries, especially Gulf countries, have this influence to do that, because end of the day each country will go by their national interests. It's high time they need to stand united and put pressure on
the unison of the Muslim world is extremely important under the current circumstances. We've also been joined by Munir Akram Sahab. He's the former permanent ambassador of Pakistan to the United Nations. Thank you very much, Munir, who have joined us. Munir Sahab, my question first with regards to the UN. Why hasn't the United Nations taken a firm stance on this Iran-Israel conflict to date? Is it still the veto power that holds precedent in order to take a firm decision in this context?
That's right. I think on the first day when the debate was called by Iran, there was a discussion in the Security Council, and even a very mild press statement which was proposed by some of the members was rejected by the United States. So that is the problem. I think until the United States agrees to some decision, the Security Council will be unable to adopt a resolution on the issue.
How effective is the statement by Antonio Guterres, the United Nations Secretary General, calling for restraint or peace amid these hostilities between Iran and Israel? Is this enough? Because we remember the number of times that he had called for restraint in the Israel-Palestine conflict, and nothing happened on that front. So should we expect the same in this case as well?
Yes. Well, the Secretary General has a moral authority. He does not have any enforcement ability on his own. He can only offer his good offices, he can offer his mediation, he can offer his moral authority, he can convene the Security Council. But all that has been done. And until and unless the United States, which supports Israel, is able to join in any decision, the Security Council and the United Nations Security Council or the Secretary General will not be able to take any meaningful enforcement action.
All right. Munir Akram Sahab, also US President Donald Trump says that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Rafael Grossi, who is the head of IAEA, yesterday said there was a possibility of both radiological and chemical contamination from the damaged Natanz installation that was hit by Israel. Israel's defense minister also, in comments that were carried by one of the major newspapers, said that Israeli Air Force will wage more very significant attacks in Tehran today against targets of the regime and infrastructure. He said they are on the verge of destroying 10 nuclear targets in the Iranian capital. Is the world, Munir Akram Sahab, close to a nuclear radiation incident?
I think one has to evaluate as to whether there has been any leakage of nuclear materials. The centrifuges do have enriched uranium, which could have radiation effects, but most of the radiation would come from an explosion, and that I don't think is likely to happen. At least the Iranians so far have not built a nuclear explosive device. So the chances of that may not be that imminent. But of course, if this war goes on, and if the Iranians have no other option, they could turn to very desperate options in terms of building a crude bomb or building a radiation device, which could be quite dangerous.
Munir Akram Saab, also Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, says Israel is changing the face of the Middle East with its military campaign against Iran, which he says is going to lead to radical changes in Iran. He says Israel is pursuing three main objectives: elimination of the nuclear program, elimination of ballistic missile production capability, and elimination of the axis of terrorism. Will Israel achieve its targets, in your point of view?
Well, I think they can severely damage Iran's nuclear capabilities, including the Natanz uranium enrichment plant, which is mostly overground. It will be much more difficult for them to destroy the underground facility at Fordo. And Iran, of course, can reconstitute its nuclear program afterwards, after the end of the conflict. They could reconfigure. You cannot take away the knowledge that the Iranians have got of enrichment away from them. They can reconstitute. So that's the first thing. Secondly, missile capabilities also. They can destroy the missile capabilities. They can destroy the ballistic missile defense capabilities. But again, Iran, after a few months after the end of the conflict, they will rebuild and reconstitute. So these are not permanent solutions for Israeli objectives. I think this is a war that has been started by Mr. Netanyahu in order to continue to have conflict in the region, not to allow normalization, because as soon as the war ends, his political career will be also at an end. And he sees that this is a very pernicious objectives that have dictated this war, which has been dictated by Netanyahu for his own personal political objectives.
All right, last question to you, Munir Akram Saab. Will Iran be ready to start a line of negotiation if its red lines are observed and considered? Many Iranian analysts say any potential US intervention will ruin the risk and will drag the entire region into war. Is this, in your point of view, a very clear message to whoever is listening?
Yes, I think Iran obviously is in a weaker position, and therefore it would be in its interest to seek a cessation of hostilities, get some sort of an agreement, and then to rebuild its strength. Of course, there are red lines for Iran. They don't want to give up the right of enrichment, and that will have to be somehow, some compromise will have to be found in a negotiated agreement. But at this time, it's difficult for the Iranians to admit defeat and to accept unconditional conditions that will be imposed on it. And that's why I think the conflict will go on for some time. But it is in the interest of all the international community that this conflict should not spread. It is in our interest that the countries of the Gulf should not become involved in this war, that the United States should not become involved in this war. It should be contained. It should be stopped as soon as possible, and some form of a political solution should be found to restore normalcy, to restore peace, and to allow the Iranians to rebuild their country.
Thank you very much, Munir. Akram Saab, former permanent ambassador to the UN, joining us and giving us his eminent point of view on this recent escalation and the conflict between Iran and Israel. We'll come to a story now that concerns Field Marshal Sayyid Asim Munir, Chief of the Army Staff, who is on official visit of the US, where he not only met with the overseas Pakistani community in Washington, D.C., but also interacted with them. And of course, it was a very positive outcome on all of that. And he expressed his deep appreciation for the vital and most important role that is being played by the overseas Pakistanis as ambassadors of Pakistan in their respective country. Sangeen, this overwhelming support from the Pakistani American community for Field Marshal Sayyid Asim Munir, it negates many, such statements by certain segments of society, and of course it also highlights the fact that most of the overseas Pakistanis have a very positive outcome and outlook of how Pakistan's defense forces have defended Pakistan's interests.
No doubt. First of all, the credit goes to the complete armed forces of Pakistan for what they have been doing for the Pakistani nation through their sacrifices. The way under the leadership of Field Marshal Asim Munir Saab, the world has acknowledged its capabilities, and it's a golden opportunity for Pakistan. Whatever he's doing, sort of very commendable military diplomacy, we may call it rightly that way. After the Pakistan given a very tit-for-tat response to the Indian aggression in the shape of Bunyan Marsus, so the world has started recognizing the commendable and the praiseworthy efforts of Pakistan, not only in the military front, but as well as having the capability, yet we restrain, because yet we believe in the peaceful coexistence in the region. So not only in the region, but as well as not in the European capitals and the Gulf, they've started recognizing that the capability Pakistan has. Responding to your question, no doubt there were various unlimited social media propaganda being circled not only in our part of the region, so especially they were being run through our eastern neighbors, I may call it India, because they are unable to digest Hindustan, and they are supported Fitratul Hindustan. They cannot digest the reality. So no doubt it's his recent visit to the America is the support he has garnered from the Pakistani American, the expats living there. What does it show? It speaks volume the level of confidence the armed forces of Pakistan commands or the Pakistani is second to none.
I agree with you on that. Mohammed Umar, security analyst, joins away from the US. Umar, thank you very much to have joined us. Umar, I believe you were there at one of the gatherings that were held where the Field Marshal was also present and interacted with the overseas Pakistanis. Indian media and other kinds of media had been propagating that Field Marshal Asim Munir wasn't invited to the US, will not be going to the US. How does this visit negate these views and all the negative comments around this visit?
Umar, it was an unbelievable welcome. We actually had to move from the embassy to a larger location to accommodate all the people, all the Pakistanis that wanted to come out and meet and congratulate not only the Field Marshal, but his entire entourage. The event, I don't know why the Indian media keeps saying these lies. The Field Marshal was invited to celebrate American Army's 250th anniversary. His delegation followed the political delegation that came to talk about trade within Pakistan, with Pakistan and the United States. And later this month, the air chief has been officially invited. And once again, towards the end of the year, the army chief has already received an invitation to come back and visit the United States to further other collaborative talks between our defense areas as well as trade and other talks.
All right, Umar, so how does this bode as far as Pak-US interests, Pak-US collaboration in different realms, trade and defense, for example, two fields as you've just talked about? How important will this visit be, and as a precursor visit, and how will this lead to a further impetus in the ties that already exist between the two nations?
Umar, this just strengthens where we were. this has been, I have not seen this kind of collaboration, this kind of friendship between the United States and Pakistan in a very, very long time. There is tremendous respect for the Pakistani government at the moment in the United States. You've heard Donald Trump say repeatedly how powerful and great the leadership in Pakistan right now is. Obviously, he's talking about both the civilian leadership that is in government as well as the military leadership at the moment. They have seen the results of Paigam-e-Pakistan. They've seen the continued progress against extremism and terrorism in Pakistan. And most recently, they've seen the professionalism of the Pakistani armed forces, the Pakistani military, the Navy, and the Air Force. And this is great. This is what we needed. The focus, and as the Field Marshal said yesterday very clearly to the audience, that we are focused on rebuilding Pakistan's economy. And for us to be able to do that, we need the world's largest economy to partner with, and that is the United States. The Field Marshal gave tremendous updates on the work that the government is currently doing with talks regarding our minerals, with talks related to trade and tariffs. And this is the moment. This is what we need. And this is going to ensure the prosperity of Pakistan for a very, very long time to come. The one last thing I want to mention as far as the economy is, the Field Marshal said that the government is working very hard to digitalize commerce in Pakistan to truly show that we are right now at the moment $1 trillion economy. And because this digitalization effort is taking place, the world is recognizing this and they want to partner with Pakistan. They want to do business with Pakistan. They want to do business in Pakistan.
All right. The Field Marshal also alluded to the overseas Pakistanis as ambassadors of Pakistan in the US. How important is the role of the Pakistani diaspora in the US?
The Field Marshal said something wonderful yesterday. He said, I don't see a brain drain taking place. He said, I see a brain gain taking place. When he referred to every Pakistani in the room as an ambassador of Pakistan, what he was essentially saying is that the role that you play, the role that we play sitting overseas, and not only representing the best of the best that Pakistan has to offer, but also gaining important knowledge, building businesses, and driving all of the value that we've learned, all of the knowledge that we've learned back into Pakistan, tunneling it back into Pakistan so Pakistan can gain from all the knowledge in the world and from all of the world economies. So I think that's what he was referring to when he referred to us as each one of us as an ambassador of Pakistan. And he said this is not just to the overseas Pakistanis in the United States, but that is true of every overseas Pakistani, no matter where they are outside of Pakistan. Umar, I haven't seen an event like this since possibly in over a decade. I've not seen the level of respect that the delegation received in a very long time. The Pakistani community was so proud. They kept interrupting the Field Marshal with chants of love and patriotic songs and chants. And his keynote speech, which was actually planned for less than an hour, ended up going on for 2.5 hours. So that shows you what this means to us as overseas Pakistanis and how important this visit has been so far.
Thank you very much, Muhammad Umar, to have given us the updates, because you were there in person and you could have given us the details that you gave to us as far as this one of the meetings that the Field Marshal had with the overseas Pakistanis in the US, and of course all that we are looking forward to in the further collaboration between the US and Pakistan in the coming months and years as well. Thank you very much, Umar, again to have joined us. That was Muhammad Umar, security analyst, joining us from the US. Final question, Sangeen, how can the Pakistani government, in your point of view, further engage Pakistani diaspora to amplify Pakistan's narrative on the international fora?
I think it's a golden opportunity. I just recently put out. It needs a very comprehensive, very multidimensional approach. It is not the civilian or the military. I mean, in order to reset the US-Pak relationship, it needs to go through different dimensions. Military is one of the means where what the military has been doing through military diplomacy, gaining the confidence of the military, the Defense Department of the Americans, that can influence a very positive impact. At the same time, what the civilians can do, I mean, recently the Pakistani delegation that received a very commendable and amazing welcome in America,
the diplomatic delegation
under the leadership of Bilawal Bhutto Saab. So what does it show? It means there have been very positive dividends, output in the Americans.
All right, positive dividends as far as Pakistani delegations are concerned, and this is further reiterated by the visit of our Field Marshal Munir Saab to the US of A. With that, we come to the end of today's newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with news story segment separate to us, you in Pakistan. Stay safe. Allah Hafiz.